In 2019, the story of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara becoming Olympic-level champions wasn't part of some carefully designed master plan. In fact, it was the complete opposite. Their entire journey began with one unexpected phone call in late July of 2019. A simple conversation, one decision, and just like that, everything changed. All right, let's go. That was it. No long preparation. No detailed roadmap. Barely 2 weeks to decide. Almost nothing ready except tourist visas and hope. Yet only a few years later, this same pair would shock the skating world by putting up a historic 158.13-point world record performance on the Olympic stage in 2026. And when people look back at their journey now, it almost feels impossible to believe how casually it all started. Even Riku Miura herself later admitted it felt almost impulsive. The future gold medalist looked back on the biggest decision of her life and described it with surprising simplicity. But that's exactly what makes this story so powerful. How could two people completely change their lives and cross international borders because of one sentence? To understand that answer, we need to go back to the spring of 2019, when both skaters were standing at the lowest points of their careers. At the time, Riku Miura was only 17 years old. Born in Hyogo Prefecture, Japan, she had already built a reputation as one of the country's brightest young skating talents. Coaches constantly praised her skating fundamentals, especially the depth of her edges and the incredible strength of her core control. Even years later, Ryuichi Kihara would say he had never met another skater with such natural body stability. But behind all that talent, her body was slowly breaking down. For years, Riku had been dealing with severe lower back pain caused by lumbar spondylolysis, a serious stress fracture injury that is devastating for figure skaters. Every jump became agony. And in single skating, jumps are everything. Without consistent triple jumps, surviving at the senior level becomes nearly impossible. The more difficult the jumps became, the more pressure her spine absorbed. Year after year, the pain only grew worse. Finally, in the spring of 2019, she made the heartbreaking decision to retire from singles skating completely. Imagine being 17 years old and feeling like your entire dream has already ended. Riku later admitted there was a moment when she truly believed she might never skate again. Everything she had dedicated her childhood to suddenly disappeared because of one injury. The expectations, the sacrifices, the dreams, all of it felt gone overnight. For a teenager, it was a crushing emotional weight to carry. But at almost the exact same time, another skater in Japan was facing his own crisis. That skater was Ryuichi Kihara. By 2019, he was already 26 years old and had lived through one of the most unstable careers imaginable in pair skating. Originally a single skater, his size and athletic ability eventually pushed him toward pairs. Over the years, he competed with multiple partners, including appearances at 2 Olympic Games. But every partnership eventually ended, one after another. And with every breakup came more uncertainty about his future. By 2019, his body was worn down from injuries and mentally, he was approaching the edge of retirement. In fact, very few fans realize how difficult his life had become at that point. Despite being an Olympian, Kihara was working part-time jobs at a local skating rink in Nagoya. He handed out rental skates, monitored the ice, and even worked overnight front desk shifts at the facility. The pay was nearly identical to what college students around him were making. Think about that for a moment. A 2-time Olympian was wondering what to do with the rest of his life. Kihara himself admitted that he felt lost watching people his own age build careers outside of sports, while he only knew skating. But what haunted him most wasn't simply finding another partner. It was fear. Fear that his injured body might not be capable of safely supporting someone else anymore. Coaches and staff close to him later explained that his kindness and sense of responsibility actually became part of his burden. He didn't want another skater getting hurt because of him. And that's what makes this story feel almost cinematic. On one side, you had a 17-year-old girl who believed her skating career was over because of injury. On the other side, a 26-year-old Olympian quietly preparing for life after retirement while working part-time shifts at a skating rink. Two people standing at completely different stages of life, yet both facing the exact same question. What happens next? Then fate intervened. In June 2019, the Japan Skating Federation held a pair skating tryout in Nagoya. One of the coaches invited to observe the camp was Canadian pair specialist Bruno Marcotte, a man who would later help transform Rikuryu into world champions. His wife, Megan Duhamel, was already an Olympic medalist and one of the greatest pair skaters in the world. Marcotte had an elite eye for identifying chemistry between skaters. And during that camp, he noticed something. Riku Miura happened to be there attending camp activities with another junior pair team. Ryuichi Kihara was also present, helping with federation duties as part of his everyday routine. Two skaters with uncertain futures happened to step onto the same ice at the same time. And in that moment, Bruno Marcotte had an instinct. He wanted to see the young 17-year-old skater and the experienced Olympian together. That single instinct would change the future of Japanese pair skating forever. Then came the phone call. At the end of July 2019, the Japan Skating Federation contacted Riku Miura with an offer that would completely transform her life. Would she consider switching to pair skating and moving to Canada to train alongside Ryuichi Kihara? Now think about how insane that proposal sounded at the time. A teenage skater who had just retired because of back injuries was suddenly being asked to enter one of the most physically dangerous disciplines in figure skating. Pair skating meant massive lifts, throws, and high-speed elements she had never experienced before. It meant being launched into the air by another human being. It meant leaving Japan, living overseas, adapting to another language and culture, and rebuilding her entire career from zero. Most people would need months just to think about it. But somehow, Riku decided almost immediately. All right, let's go. That was her answer. And the speed of what happened next still sounds unbelievable today. By August 10th, barely over 2 weeks after the original phone call, she was already flying to Canada. No proper long-term visa. Almost no preparation. No guarantee that any of this would even work. Just belief. Pure belief. That decision became the first step toward creating one of the greatest pair skating stories Japan has ever seen. The moment Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara arrived in Canada, they stepped into complete uncertainty. No long-term visa. No detailed information. No clear understanding of what their new life would even look like. Riku later admitted they flew across the world with almost nothing prepared and almost no real information about what was waiting for them. They didn't fully know where they would live, how training would work, or what kind of environment they were walking into. And yet, despite all of that uncertainty, they still got on the plane and left Japan behind. Why were they willing to take such a massive risk? Part of the answer lies with coach Bruno Marcotte himself. By pure coincidence, 2019 was also the exact year Marcotte relocated his training base to Oakville, just outside Toronto. The timing was almost unbelievable. At the precise moment Riku and Ryuichi were searching for a new beginning, one of the world's top pair coaches was building a completely new training environment in Canada. It was as if every piece of the puzzle suddenly aligned at the perfect moment. Oakville, Ontario, located just west of Toronto, quickly became the birthplace of a future world-class partnership. With a population of around 100,000 people, the city itself seemed quiet and ordinary. But inside the skating world, it was becoming something special. Marcotte and his wife, Olympic medalist Megan Duhamel, had started building an elite training program at the Skate Oakville Club, and top skaters around the world were beginning to notice. And the environment surrounding them was even more incredible than most fans realized. Not far away stood the legendary Toronto Cricket Skating and Curling Club, one of the most famous figure skating facilities in the world. This was the same training base used by many global skating stars. Without fully understanding it yet, Riku and Ryuichi had stepped into one of the richest and most competitive skating environments on the planet. But elite facilities alone guarantee nothing. What waited for them was overwhelming. A new language, new food, a new country, a new partner, an entirely new discipline. Every single day brought another challenge neither of them had experienced before. And yet the speed of their rise was almost impossible to believe. In August 2019, their management officially announced the formation of the new pair team. Then only a few months later, they were already scheduled to compete at the NHK Trophy as part of the Grand Prix series. For most pairs, international competition takes years to prepare for. For them, it happened almost immediately. Then came their first domestic competition together. Just 2.5 months after forming the partnership, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara returned to Japan for the 2019 East Japan Championships. At the time, almost nobody in the skating world was paying attention to them. Fans were focused on the major single stars. Media coverage barely mentioned the pair event at all. And honestly, that made sense. Newly formed pair teams almost never produce important results within their first few months together. The sport simply doesn't work that way. Pair skating is brutally difficult. Timing lifts alone can take months to master. Throw jumps require total trust. Every movement depends on two bodies operating with one rhythm. Usually it takes at least half a year, sometimes longer than a full year, before a new pair begins looking stable on the ice. But when Riku and Ryuichi stepped onto the rink that day, something felt different immediately. Because the moment they first skated together back in July, Kihara had already felt it. Later, he described their first practice with almost shocking emotion. "The moment we skated together, I knew it would work," he said. On another occasion, he described it even more dramatically. "It felt like being struck by lightning." Imagine hearing that from a former Olympian who had already gone through failed partnerships, injuries, and thoughts of retirement. One practice session with a 17-year-old girl suddenly made him believe in his skating future again. And at the East Japan Championships, the entire skating world unknowingly witnessed the beginning of something historic. The audience expected nothing from this newly formed team. But the second they began skating, it became obvious this wasn't normal chemistry. Their movements looked natural. Their timing looked instinctive. It didn't feel like two athletes who had only known each other for a few months. It felt like a partnership that had existed for years. Then the results were announced. First place. A brand new pair team had won a domestic title less than 3 months after forming. In Japanese pair skating history, that speed was almost unheard of. While other teams needed years to synchronize their movements, Riku and Ryuichi somehow built elite-level chemistry in only 2.5 months. So how is that possible? Years later, Riku Miura revealed the real reason in a simple sentence. "The feeling of safety with him was incredible." And that sentence explains everything. Because pair skating is built entirely on trust, especially during lifts, the most dangerous element in the sport. At certain moments, the female skater is completely suspended above the ice with no control over her own safety. One mistake can end a career instantly. But from the very beginning, Riku trusted Ryuichi completely. That trust became the invisible foundation of everything they later achieved together. Riku and Ryuichi's trust was not just emotional. In pair skating, trust can literally decide whether an athlete stays safe or suffers a career-ending injury. To understand why Riku's words mattered so much, we need to understand what a lift really means in pair skating. A lift is not just a beautiful move where the male skater raises the female skater above his head. It is one of the most dangerous elements in the entire sport. The woman is lifted nearly 3 meters above the ice while the man continues skating at high speed, turning, balancing, and carrying her body through the air. In that moment, the female skater has no real control. She is completely dependent on her partner's strength, timing, and focus. If the man loses balance, if his grip slips, or if the timing breaks for even 1 second, the woman can fall directly onto the ice with no protection. And history has shown how dangerous that can be. Broken collarbones, head injuries, back injuries, and devastating crashes have all happened in pair skating. One mistake can end a career. That is why female pair skaters need absolute trust in their partners. Without that trust, no lift can ever look truly free. And from the very beginning, Ryuichi Kihara kept repeating one promise to Riku Miura. "I will never drop you." He said it again and again. Not once, not casually, like a promise, like a rule, like something he wanted her heart to believe before her body ever went into the air. For Riku, who was stepping into a new country, a new discipline, a new partnership, and a completely unknown future, Those words became an anchor. She later said that she felt so safe with him that she almost started thinking, even if I fall, it's okay. And when she said that, Kihara jokingly responded, "Please don't say that." They laughed about it in interviews, but behind that laughter was something incredibly important. He promised to protect her. She trusted him enough to relax. And they were already comfortable enough to joke about something that could terrify most skaters. That was the foundation beneath their first victory. Before the medals, before the world titles, before the Olympic dream, there was one simple promise: I will never drop you. And over the next 7 years, that promise never disappeared. From their 2019 East Japan Championship victory, to their Grand Prix debut at NHK Trophy, to their rise at the World Championships, to their Olympic breakthrough, every chapter of their journey was built on that same invisible trust. In 2021, they won Japan's first pairs world medal in nearly a decade. In 2022, they helped Japan earn an Olympic team medal and finish 7th in the pairs event, the best result Japan had ever achieved in Olympic pair skating. In 2023, they became world champions, making history as Japan's first pair skating world title winners. Then came injuries, setbacks, pressure, doubt. But still, the promise remained. And by 2026, everything came full circle. At the Milan Olympic Games, their short program did not go as planned. A mistake on a lift pushed them down to 5th place. Around the world, many fans thought the dream was over. The gap to first place looked too large. To win gold, they needed something close to a miracle. Then the free skate began. This time, every lift was clean. Every element was controlled. Every throw jump landed. No hesitation. No fear. No collapse under pressure. Their free skate score was 158.13 points, the highest free skate score in history. Their total score reached 231.2, and Japan finally had its first Olympic gold medal in pair skating. And the most powerful part is this: the very element that once caused doubt in the short program became the symbol of their victory in the free skate. The lifts. The same lifts built on the promise Kihara had made back in 2019. I will never drop you. 7 years later, in Milan, he kept that promise on the biggest stage in the world. After their retirement announcement, Riku and Ryuichi appeared at Bloom on Ice in Hyogo in front of a packed audience. Holding the microphone, Riku said something that perfectly captured their story. In pair skating, meeting your partner feels like destiny. Destiny. That one word connected everything. The phone call in July 2019, the sudden move to Canada, the tourist visas, the unknown future, the first tryout, the first victory, the injuries, the medals, the world record, the Olympic gold. What looked like separate moments were actually part of one beautiful line. And maybe that is the real lesson of Riku and Ryuichi's story. Most people wait until everything is ready before they move. They wait for perfect timing, perfect planning, perfect certainty. But sometimes, the greatest opportunity of your life arrives before you are prepared. And in that moment, you have to decide. Do you stay where it feels safe? Or do you say, "All right, let's go"? Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara chose to go. And 7 years later, the whole world finally understood why.